Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite movies, and today I'm going to do a follow-up to my review series where I review a bunch of movies from Hong Kong, and this time it will be the classic, the one and only, the legendary, the iconic In the Mood for Love, or in Cantonese,花样年华, and it is directed by the one and only Kar-wai, and he is often considered as the number one, the top-notch director of Hong Kong. Everybody who knows Hong Kong cinema will know Wong Kar-wai. I mean, he is the star. He is the director. Everybody talks about him. And we have this movie, which is often considered as his best, also one of the best movies of the world. And I watched it yesterday, and it's a really special one because so far in my series of Hong Kong movie reviews, I've only reviewed this one is the third one, and all three of the movies I've watched are really different movies. The first one, Shaolin Soccer or Shaolin Football, being a ridiculous, over the top comedy action movie. The second one takes itself more seriously about mafia and cartel. But that being said, the second movie, Election, felt kinda drab in comparison because it just doesn't have the interesting element to it. But that also goes the same for this movie, In the Mood for Love. But in a way, it's intentional and in a different way. And that's why, for me, this movie is kinda hard to digest. After watching this movie, it feels like the kind of movie that needs a lot of thinking in order to fully understand it. And it's the kind of movie that requires one night's sleep in order to fully appreciate it. And In the Mood for Love is basically about two couples. One is the Chan couples, and one is the Chow couples, and they rent adjacent rooms in a building in the 1960s in Hong Kong. And for some reason, for a very long time, Mr. Chow's wife didn't show up, and she's just kind of gone. For some reason, she just kind of disappeared. Maybe it's for a job. Maybe she's gone somewhere else. We don't really know that. And then for some reason, for a very long time, Mr. Chan's wife is still in the apartment, still in the room, but Mr. Chan himself is also gone. And then very soon, Mr. Chow and Sue, who is Mr. Chan's wife, they come to a conclusion that their respective spouses are having an affair. And afterwards, they begin to interact with one another while trying really hard to avoid ending up like their spouses, where they fall in love with one another. So they kept their relationship super duper platonic, and they try to hide their relationship as much as possible until at some point towards the end of the movie, where Mr. Chan basically admits his love for Sue. Mr. Chan became the thing that he swore to avoid. And Sue actually secretly fell in love with Mr. Chan as well, which means that Sue also did the thing that he swore to avoid. And at the end, in order to truly avoid having an affair, um, they decided to part ways. But at the same time, they really miss each other, but they never really met again. And that's basically the plot. And it's the movie is only 1 hour and 38 minutes long, but it feels really long. And the biggest reason is its slow pace. It's not a very accessible movie, and you can tell from the directing style that the tone of this movie is very matured, and the director is very experienced in the industry, because this kind of slow paced movie reminds me a lot of other classic artsy films. Even I Am Love, Io Sono l'amore by Luca Guadagnino, released in 2010 or 2009, I think, is also now that I've seen In the Mood for Love, I feel like I Am Love by Luca Guadagnino is heavily influenced by In the Mood for Love. Again, it's a really weird comparison, but comparing to the last Hong Kong movie that I've seen, Election, the tone of Election is also very chill and not so interesting, and it doesn't quite have the punch to it that I want. But same goes for In the Mood for Love, except in Election I don't think it's intentional, but in the Mood for Love I think it is intentional, and I think artistically it helps the overall style of the movie. Even though at first I didn't really get it, I was a little let down, in fact. But now that I'm thinking about the movie again, I feel like the slow pace really helps the movie sink into our minds. Not only that, this movie is also a period piece set in the 1960s. The artistic tone of the movie is something special. The production design, the colors, and the way the camera is set is very special, because there are a lot of frames within frames, meaning that for the two main characters, Mr. Chan and Sue, they are always trapped, either in the corridor of a very cramped apartment or trapped just in a mirror. And it just brings out the very trapped, claustrophobic effect that this movie has. In a way, it's kind of depressing and kind of suppressing as well, because literally this movie is about suppressed love. I also really love the use of mirrors in this movie. There are a lot of shots in this movie where we just see the characters in the mirrors, and it's almost like they are being watched. They're being constantly watched and observed, which adds on to the final decision made by Mr. Chan and Sue to part ways and split up, because they don't want to be found out. They don't want people to find out that they are also having an affair, while their respective spouses are also having an affair. And yeah, I guess there are flaws in this movie as well. This movie is not perfect in my opinion. Again, it's not a very accessible movie. The pace is extremely slow. The acting, I wouldn't say it's bad, but neither would I say it's top notch. And there are a couple of scenes that doesn't even show the actor, where it's just either Mr. Chan or Sue speaking to someone, and we don't really see who that someone is. And you would almost think that it's because the studio just couldn't afford another actor, but at the same time you'd think that maybe it has its artistic purposes. And then there's this problem of the passage of time in this movie. A lot of the scenes in this movie are really short. In a way, you almost can't tell if it belongs to the previous scene, if it happens immediately after the previous scene, or is it somewhere far in the future, or you kind of don't know how much time has passed. And again, some scenes are really choppy. There's no rise or climax or resolve. It just feels kind of out of place. But in a way, these shots are so short. In a way, they are so choppily arranged. It's like watching this movie is recalling blurry, hazy memory in your mind. Another thing that I would like to talk about is the music of this movie. It's not a very musical movie. A lot of the scenes are musicless. But whenever there is music, it's this one string piece that is kept on being played over and over again. It's like the soundtrack for the movie is actually just one track, but it just pops up multiple times in the movie. But the track itself is not bad. And also, I kind of appreciate the fact that Kar-wai actually used a lot of 60s Latin music in this movie. And in a way, it just makes this movie's mood way more sad and depressing, but yet at the same time, it's not the downright in your face sadness, but it's the smoke and mist and hazy kind of fantastical moodiness. At the end, you can't really deny how poignant this movie is, because ultimately this movie is not just a movie about a heartbreaking love, a heartbreaking romantic relationship, but it's also about the suppression of love in the 1960s in Hong Kong, and also, more importantly, the fact that both Mr. Chan and Sue parted ways only because they love each other and they don't want to be the thing that they swore to avoid. And that is why they parted ways and they never saw each other again while missing each other, because they want to live in the fantasy of being in love with one another while not actually being in it, and sort of delaying the moment of love forever and ever and ever. And that is just, while it's not a thing that I relate to a lot, but given how sentimental I am, yeah, it's really friggin' depressing, and it's just poetic, but yet sort of unfortunate how things had to end this way. And I even have a little theory, because the spouses of Mr. Chan and Sue never really showed up in this movie. It's almost like they never really existed. It's almost like Mr. Chan and Sue were single in the first place, and they actually fell in love with one another before they are even married, but yet they can't really do it. And the reason why is because they somehow have a spouse who also had an affair with one another. And it's a very thought provoking movie, and it's really artistic, it's really beautiful, it's really poetic. The dialogues are so much more natural than many other dialogues I've seen in other Hong Kong movies. And the tone of this movie is just breathtaking. It's beautiful and gorgeous, and the story is just sad but yet poetic, and very memorable in a way, especially towards the end, where we suddenly get a flash forward to 1966 Cambodia, where we see this news clip in French, and then afterwards Mr. Chan sort of speaking into a temple and filling a hole with mud, and that's the end of the movie. So yeah, I'm gonna say In the Mood for Love is a movie worth watching, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And I will probably rewatch it at some point in the future, but for now, 9 out of 10 is the score. So have you watched In the Mood for Love? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.